Good morning, London. Well, what a few weeks it's been. I have not filmed as much as I should have. I've gotten a haircut, I've pushed a ton of code, and today I'm going to be walking you through some of that code, including some new features that I'm actually working on right now, including a Zapier integration for my startup. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're a software engineer, welcome. You're probably going to enjoy this video. Today we're heading into a WeWork, which is about 20 minutes walk from here. We're going to get some nice, fresh, crisp air, maybe a little bit of coffee, and then we're going to kick off the day. All right, let's get started. Woo! Good boy. Have a good day. Man, it is so busy today. I don't know what's up with Thursdays, but there's just always so many people here. But anyway, it's been wild. We've pushed a lot of code, and this diary is becoming a little bit, this notebook is becoming a little bit kind of iconic. This is like the entire process of building Sub, the startup, from the ground up, and like I can go through it and like see all the learnings like along the way. So interesting. But anyway, you're not here for that. You're here for the code. So let's talk about what we've actually built. So the thing about running a startup and getting early customers on board is that you're always going to have like feature requests, new things that people want added to the platform to make their experience better. Now, how do you triage all of those things? Because you can't just build everything, otherwise that's going to be an issue. You're never going to have time, and you're also probably just going to have mad scope creep. So instead, we've got to figure out what are the kind of common trends going on and what are people asking for. And that's kind of where I get my ideas of what I should build over the next few weeks, next few months, and ideally work towards a place where we're actually building meaningful stuff that when we're at scale, when we've got like thousands and thousands of users on board that are using our product every day, that they're like, yeah, this makes sense for the feature set that I need. And so if I just pull up the things that we have pushed over the past few weeks, let's have a look. First of all, before we get to that, can we just appreciate how nice is this contribution graph? But let's jump in. Let's go subscription backend. This is the backend for all my stuff. Let's have a look at commits. So a couple of major things. One of them being we completely destroyed our entire pricing model. Originally, we were a 4% flat percentage transaction fee plus Stripe fees as our entire business model. That's just how we were earning money. We've ditched that and we're actually 0% now, so we charge no fees. Now I talked about that in some previous videos, but since then, we've actually gone a step further. So you might notice now, if you head over to Sub, we've got a brand new landing page, but also we've got this brand new pricing section. Now I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's free forever. We give people unlimited members. They can connect everything, they can automate everything, and literally you're just upgrading for some advanced features, which we have more advanced features to come, including like, whoa, a Zapier integration. There's also been a lot of requests for having staff on board, like having multiple people that can manage subs and want to actually set up subs on behalf of people. That's really cool. So that's another thing we need to build, and we can chuck that into a top tier plan. I talked a little bit about this on my dev club because obviously, you know, all of those guys, shout out to you guys, all see these changes in and out every single day, and they're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you changing things so much? It's because I'm talking to users every single day, and they're telling me what they want. And so what am I working on today? Well, that's an interesting one. I'm building a Zapier integration. It turns out it's not as straightforward as you would think. I thought it would just be a case of this. where you have essentially my back end, and then we've got Zapier over here, and I would essentially just send requests to Zapier with some sort of payload, and then they would like figure out whatever that user wants to do. I thought it would be that easy. Well, it turns out it isn't, and that's because there's a little thing that happens in order for this Zapier to work, and that is that the user needs to turn it on. I thought there would be some way around this that could make it a whole lot simpler. Anyway, it's not, but it's okay, I figured it out. This is what the code looks like, and I'm kind of screaming because my entire repository is in TypeScript, and then they base all the boilerplate, like demo examples of the Zapier integrations and triggers just using plain JS. So I'm a little bit triggered, but okay, I'll walk you guys through it. But I don't know if you guys can see behind me, we have the coffee. Very strategic laptop placement today. So let's go get set up with one of those. So you're ranking #1 organically? Wait, that's freaking awesome. Let's just get our servers up and running. I'll get the front end going, so we'll yarn dev that. We'll get the back end going, where we'll, I did restart my computer, so I can't remember if I've actually done this yet. Docker compose update. Okay, we're actually running, so we'll just go yarn start dev. Okay, beautiful, and okay, cool, we're looking good. Let's jump into our local host, and we will open up the dashboard. Beautiful, and this is just like the demo page that you get as soon as you sign up to sub. You just get a community generated for you. But we're actually going to head over into our settings page, and there's going to be something brand new, which is not out on production right now, and that is this new addition of API keys. Pretty cool. And I'm going to revoke this one, and we're just going to generate a new one. And essentially what this has just done is it's kind of wrapped up a user ID of the logged in user. It's hashed it one way, it's hashed it again, and then it's like generated essentially this API token that we're saving in the database for use with something like Zapier. So let's go and check out how that even works. First of all, on the front end, very, very, very simple. A nice little piece of front end with a couple of functions that actually trigger my backend, which is like handle generate API key, and we've also got a handle dismiss token dialog, handle revoke token, so if that you want to remove it and delete it, and don't let Zapier use it anymore. It's just basic front end stuff that's calling my backend. Anyway, let's go to the backend and actually look at this integrations API that I just created and see how that works. Utility, integration, and let's jump into this controller. All right, once again, let's blow this up so we can actually see it. And all right, we've got a couple of cool things going on here. First of all, this brand new module for integrations, dedicated, called integration, funnily enough. And we've got a couple of post requests here: generate API token, get API tokens, revoke API token. So what are we actually doing with this generate API token? Well, essentially, we actually only return that token to the user on the front end once. So once they've copied it out of that modal and then dismissed it, then they actually can't see that token again, just for security reasons, so that they don't like share their token again somehow, or someone gets access to their account and now all of a sudden they can like automate stuff between Zapier. We don't want that. So that's how that works, but they can go ahead and revoke a token if they want to. Now what's Zapier doing with this token? Well, let me show you how that works, because it took me a while to figure out how this flow actually works. The docs are kind of whack. So I've now also got this brand new module inside my utilities called Zapier. Now this is where I host a lot of my kind of like integrations, so Discord and Slack and my mail integration and such, but now we've got a new one called Zapier with an entire app folder, which is essentially my Zapier app that I'm building right here. And then I've also got standard controller and nest modules here for Zapier as well, which just do a couple of basic functions. And so the first two main functions right here, which are inside the actual Zapier module controller, are subscribe and unsubscribe. And essentially what these are doing is, this is when the user pastes in the API key, and then they are listening for a specific trigger. This is what's going on here. They're going to subscribe essentially to this webhook, and we're going to generate a webhook ID. I'm currently just console logging that ID that comes through and the URL that Zapier generates, and essentially this URL that comes through is going to be a URL that I need to call whenever this authenticated user has any significant event related to this trigger that I set up right here. Oh my gosh, I know, it seems a little bit wild, but essentially the 2-second version is this. I'll draw it. User comes into Zapier and they're gonna say, I want to connect the sub app inside Zapier, and then Zapier is gonna go, okay, cool, what's your API token? And then what they're gonna do is they're gonna jump into the front end, they're gonna retrieve that token, they're going to paste it here, and then submit. Cool. Now what Zapier's done is they've gone, cool, someone's just authenticated, we've got their user ID, good to go. Now let's actually get a trigger. And so that is where they're jumping into that app folder right here and getting that trigger that I set up before. Now the only trigger that I've set up so far is actually called new member, and essentially it's triggering any time a new member signs up to their sub. So now Zapier is going to give them a list of all the available triggers that sub has as an app on the platform. And in this case, there is just one, which is called new member. Cool, so the user's gonna click that, and then it's gonna say, okay, great, let's set this up. And because they're already authenticated on the account, Zapier is now gonna send something to my backend through that subscribe webhook. And that's the one that I just pointed out before that looks just like this, subscribe. Now what that's gonna give me is essentially this unique URL, which is pretty cool. And this URL is essentially a unique URL that I can call for any time there's a new member for this specific authenticated user, and I can send that payload to this URL. That means Zapier is going to catch it, it's going to trigger inside the new member, and then that new member can do whatever they want with it. They could send it to Airtable, they could send it to a CRM, they could send a text message, whatever they want to do. But that, in a nutshell, is how Zapier works, which is pretty wild, right? But also kind of makes a lot of sense. So yeah, we're going to be finishing that up today. The core parts to make this actually a working function will be, first of all, I actually need to take that unique URL for the user when they authenticate with Zapier and connect that trigger. I need to save it in a dedicated model somewhere that I'm going to be able to reference. So anytime anything happens for that sub member where a new member subscribes to the community, I can then trigger that endpoint and send that payload off to Zapier. That's what I need to figure out today. So we're going to get that done. Well, we're coffee number 2 for the WeWork, and we've made some good progress. So Zapier is looking good. I built a blog earlier this week. It took me 1 day, and the reason why I wanted to do this is because our entire strategy so far at Sub has been fully organic as far as getting new people and new creators on board and like monetizing their WhatsApp, Slack, Discord communities. And so I'm not really interested in paid ads. I'm not really interested in doing any sort of like paid search, paid Facebook, paid Reddit, anything like that. I just love working with our core audience and figuring out what drives them in a really perfect product for their solution. And so essentially, I just want to get more of those people, but organically, the way that I think about it is I want people to discover us through search. Maddie and I have been thinking, hey, what if we build a blog, we write really high quality articles, we rank for all these like really cool keywords, and then over time, our organic clicks are just gonna go like through the roof. And so I built a blog, and we actually got articles ranking #1 within 24 hours. We almost need to release a masterclass on this because this is so sick. Check this out. So let's head into the code and let's actually jump into the front end. Now Next.js is one of the best frameworks for actually building rich SEO content because you can work with all your like dynamic metadata. It serves it really nicely in server-side rendering. You can get Google indexing it like automatically, but this is what I've done. Let's jump in here. You'll now see we've got a new route called blog. So let's head into there, blog. You'll see there's two things. First of all, we've got all our sanity config. So this is just like schema types and environment variables for our sanity project, but also we've got the main blog homepage. And this is essentially this main page that you'll see, sub.me/blog. Responsive, looks really nice, server-side rendered, and obviously SEO rich. Now, if we head into an article, then beautiful. Now Maddie's written these articles, they're pulling through automatically from Sanity, and you can see super rich SEO content, which is really good for people discovering us on Sub. And there's like call to actions all the way through. There's a nice big one at the end with some beautiful meteors, but otherwise it's super simple. It's literally just a main blog page at the top, and then underneath it's a dynamic slug that's pulling in, it's fetching the post from Sanity, and check out my metadata scope right here. It's literally this simple to do like beautiful Next.js metadata. Title, post title, sub, description, and then open graph, which is essentially like all my images, title, description all over again for your social networks and such. But literally, once you sort that and you start publishing on Sanity, this stuff just ranks. Another two things that I added, crucial for blog success, sitemap, and then also robots.ts. A sitemap looks a little bit like this. You can check it out inside the docs. It's essentially just like fetching all of our blog articles, serving them in a sitemap that Google's search console can read. And then robots is essentially just referencing that, telling it which user agents it can access. But otherwise, now it is just up to writing really high quality SEO rich content. Also, last thing, look how satisfying this is. If I go, hey metadata, we just get this blog post. And we paste that in. Let's check the metadata on this. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So nice. And it's pulling through like a decent bit of the description as well, so that it actually can understand the first few pieces of that article. Man, I have this super strange issue right now. I think I might make it look a little bit easy sometimes, that I just like code and everything always works. It doesn't. And today is one of those days. I'm essentially getting an API key that I generate from the back end to the front end. I paste that into Zapier, and then what it's doing is it's authenticating with my backend, ensuring it receives a user ID up to Zapier that it can save inside this thing called auth data, or whatever the terminology they like to use over at Zapier. Now the weird thing that's happening on my end is anytime I try and do a subsequent call, so like trying to create a new test or receive recent member events, new member events up to Zapier for some like dummy data, it's not passing through this auth data user ID that I just got from the authentication. So authentication's passing, it's just not saving the bundle data correctly. And I just don't know why. I'm like boggling my brain. It's 2 p.m. right now. I've tried using a UI method. I've tried using just straight into the code method. I don't know why this is so hard to figure out. Like, it's super basic. I can't be the only one that's finding this thing weird. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those days. Maybe I'll get some coffee. Let's try that. Flat white, please. Thanks. This is one of the sick things about WeWork though, it's just barista on tap. And all of the New York WeWorks I went to did not have a barista. So shout out London.
It's Thursday.
We're nearly there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Bit of liquid brain. That's crazy. All right. Let's figure this crap out. All right, so we're gonna resort to ChatGPT. This endpoint returns an object with user ID. All right, let's try. Let's see what ChatGPT can do, because sometimes it saves the day. Okay, well, I have resorted to customer support. I've sent Zapier a customer support request, giving them all the details. I'm authenticating correctly, I'm bringing back a user ID. I just want to be able to use that user ID in subsequent calls for like retrieving demo data and recent members and such. So Zapier, please help me. Okay, so I think I just figured out a workaround, which is so dumb, but so simple. So think about it this way. I was originally, and I still am, for the authentication piece of Zapier, they paste in their token that Sub has given them, and then that's gonna send off a request and receive a user ID to authenticate that user. Now what I was wanting is for that user ID to then be available to send along with like requests that come after that. But what if I just keep sending that API key, which would make a lot of sense. And then just every time I just check what user that API key belongs to. Come on, man. Okay, so you'll now see in my get members, so this is essentially just trying to test the Zapier integration and receive any recent members. You'll now see it's touching the integration service and getting that API user, the original endpoint that actually manages authenticating that user by their API token. And if there's no user, we're not going to return anything. But if there is, we're going to console log. So let's give this a crack. Test trigger. And would you freaking look at that? We did it. All right. We can keep moving. Zapier is underway, and I apologize to everyone at Zapier who's trying to figure out my query now. We solved it, we're good. All right, move on. Great success. We now have Zapier working in test for new member subscriptions coming in. We're actually sending the data, we're setting up subscriptions. When they turn off the Zap, it automatically cancels that from the back end, so that's all good to go. Feeling good. And now, in about, what have I got? 20 minutes. Got an investor meeting, and then, yeah, I guess we're just gonna go from there. It's been a good day. Actually stoked that I figured out that Zapier stuff, because that was just like racking my brain. But yeah, that's what it's like as a dev, you know? Also, look at this. It is very New Zealand looking. Nice. Let's get back to it. I might actually, could be beer time.